So a little bit about myself. I come from a completely different world. I've done my PhD and postdoctoral research in string theory, in physics, if you know. Completely abstract worlds, quantum gravity, 10 dimensions, and all that. Until one day I bought my first smartphone. I was excited. I bought it in order to use Waze. Have you heard about Waze? So it's a collaborative, I would say, navigation system. Started in Israel, and in Israel it's very, very popular, and you can easily get from place to place with it and know how much time it will take and where you have in traffic and everything, even police and everything you need to know. So I started I actually bought the smartphone in order to use Waze, and immediately I realized that this machine can do much more than just Waze. And then I thought about this idea of real-time ride sharing. I contacted several of my friends, and from there on, we just started rolling. And actually, pretty fast, we opened a window much, much bigger than real-time ride sharing. And I will tell you both about transportation and decentralized transportation, but I think most of the time I'll try to tell you about the bigger, larger scope and view that we have developed about decentralized organization, decentralized future, society, models, new kind of protocols for decentralized collaborations, a new type of economy which we have developed. So it's a much, much bigger vision, which I would like to share with you. I think it's like more, yeah, and I didn't know that there will be so many brilliant minds here. So I hope that I have prepared a more fancy presentation for that, but let's just go with the informal version. So this is from another presentation, but I brought it here to introduce it to my older son. So this is my older son wearing my glasses. And a few days ago, why I'm telling you that, a few days ago he came to me. I was working at, I don't know, until 3 a.m. or something like that, and then 7 o'clock in the morning he woke me up. Come, Daddy, you have to wake up. So I did. He told me that he has just drawn amazing drawing. Now, just before that, all the drawings that he was used to make was just shapes and just lines and shapes and nothing that you can actually recognize. And suddenly he told me it's an amazing drawing. Of course, he already got the feedback from his mother, so he knew that it's an amazing drawing. And this was the drawing, which is amazing. I mean, he was just shifting from lines to that. And then he telling me this is the tree, and these are the oranges there, and then the house, and the door, and everything. You can just see there. And then I was really, really amazed, and automatically reacted, wow, have you done all that by yourself? And he said, yeah, I was proud, and he said, yes. And then 2 minutes later, I was kind of struck by the understanding that, wait, why did I react like that? I mean, from childhood, we always praise people for doing things by themselves. I mean, we grew on these kind of mottos from early childhood. And I would never imagine say to my kid, wow, have you done that with your friends? And that's the whole essence, which I'm going back to the title, because we are, in some sense, we have been raised on a society of individuals. And I will try to tell you about a shift, a transition from society of individual to society of corporations. That's basically the general statement. Okay? Yeah. So with that, let me close for now. Oh, you know what? Let me just, one more thing I can show you. Oh, I don't have the internet connection here, I guess. Oh, never mind. I'll show you later the Lazuz website. So let me, oh, it's here. Yeah. Okay, so let me just. Okay. So what are the problems that we are trying to face today? Like the biggest problems. So I'm claiming that we have a lot of really, really critical problems we are facing today that must be solved. And both in terms of society and in terms of economy. Now, if I just need to highlight, like in one word, I would say about the society that is, we have a lot of division in society. A lot of, again, we are based on success of individuals and very less about collaborations and cooperations. So that's one thing about society. And if I need to, again, choose one word to point to the problem of economics, I would say that we have a lot of focus and emphasis on capital and too less about social. However, we all know about there is capitalistic point of view and there is socialistic point of view. And also the socialistic point of view lacks something. So it lacks the acknowledgement of the importance of capital. So I would try to expose a new way of thinking, both in terms of social aspects and economical aspects, about a socio-capitalistic point of view, okay? Where you acknowledge both the power of capital and also the urge for individual to succeed and to create and to make actions, but also on the power of collaboration and cooperation. So kind of balancing this tension between social and capital. And I think just from the quick tour I had with Ronald here, I think you're just doing that same thing here in this place. So that's beautiful. Okay, so I will discuss this kind of problem, this a new form of socio-economics, I would say. I will tell you what are the challenges in there. Why is it so difficult to make cooperation succeed? I mean, it's not that I don't think we are the first, like we Lazuz, but we as a generation, the first to think about those ideas. But it's simply a hard problem. It's objectively hard problem. And why is it so hard? So why cooperating is hard? So that I will discuss that in more details. And then I will try to suggest the transition. So how we move from non-cooperative state into a cooperative state. There is a missing link there that was missing for all these years. So with this kind of transition, I will describe shortly how if you introduce some new set of tools, a new set of communication and propagation channels, and also some new revenue model, how we can generate a flow of creation in the world. And then I will introduce you to the notion of decentralized autonomous organization. How many of you already heard about decentralized autonomous organizations? Okay, how many are very well with the details of decentralized autonomous organization? Okay, so that's fairly. So I'll try to introduce it in details. Bitcoin is, I think, the first decentralized autonomous organization. But I will claim is that it's a very, very narrow and specific and not fully developed, not even not fully developed, I would say scarcely developed with respect to what you can actually imagine.
Specialized.
What?
Specialized.
Even more than, it's also specialized for a specific realm, but more than that, I would say that even within that realm, you could have developed much, much wider model. And I will tell you about that. So I will try to give you the vision for a wide decentralized autonomous organization. And I will tell you what are the three pillars of this organization, which are now actually being built to these very days. And then I will tell you some more details. I mean, if you will still be awake and not too bored, I will tell you about more technical details about our protocols, economy, which are more technical but fascinating, I hope. So yeah, and I guess until you stop me, I will just keep on talking forever. So until Ronald feels that more than half of the audience is
leaving the room.
Right. Okay. Great. So you're voting by leaving the room. You are voting and for stopping the. Great. Okay. Where should we start? So maybe just historically, let me tell you how we got to this business from the beginning. So we thought about ride sharing. And specifically about real-time ride-sharing. Let me emphasize that because there is a lot of confusion in this industry. Real-time means that you are not pre-planning anything. You're just clicking, you're taking your app, you're clicking, I want to go, it just opens up your regular destination, and you want to go there. And just 2 minutes afterwards, maybe a car is passing by and you can go with it. Now, maybe you need to go from A to B, and there is no car right now moving from A to B, but maybe there's a car from A to C and another car from C to B. So a multi-hop solution can rearrange that. So that's what I'm talking about real time. Ride sharing, which is usually used as a misnomer for Uber, for example. Ride sharing means that you're really sharing the ride and thus sharing the cost of drive. So it's not a commercial drive. That's what it means by the phrase ride sharing. So for example, when Uber calls themselves real-time ride sharing, it's a misnomer. Okay? So real-time ride sharing just means that when I'm driving from home to work, I can pick up on my way, in any case, I can pick up other riders, and by that cost my drive costs, and also meet with new peoples, and also, I will tell you more about that later. It's also becoming a social network, and we raise the social capital in that network, and so on. So that's what we mean by real-time ride sharing. Now, so the first thing that I thought when I think about the idea, wow, it's probably the best idea ever. And then the second thing, I opened the internet and found out that there are dozens of companies who try to make that. Oh, so I'm probably, there are a million people before me already thought about it, so why bothering? And the third thing is noticing that actually none of them have succeeded. So up to date, no one has succeeded to build real-time ride sharing. And then there was a pause, and we should try to think why. How come so many people, so many companies, a lot of capital was raised for that. Karma, rideshare app, is a company I think founded in 2007. Is working now for 8 years. They fundraised $10 million, and they're a great app, and it doesn't work. None. Doesn't work. Simply doesn't work. So then we started to thinking, why? Why it doesn't work? So pretty fast we understood what is the big, I mean, there are a lot of problems, and sometimes you're confused by having so many problems, but already from the beginning we have observed what is the real problem, the big one. And the big one is just the chicken and egg problem, because in order for that to use, I need to count on it. To be able to count on it, I need to know that if I'm leaving home right now, I will have enough rides with multi-op solutions so I can get to my work. And also when I leave back at evening my work, I can get back to my home easily. And anytime, I don't want to be fixed to specific times or specific locations or anything like that. I don't want to be relying on public transportation if some areas are not very developed with public transportation, for example, Israel. So most people, the very most people, won't use such a network unless you have a really, really high threshold, high critical mass of people who are already using that system, and you can rely on them. But then it's a chicken and egg problem, because how do you find, so let's say that this critical threshold is, let's say 100,000 people in a specific location. Okay, so after 100,000, it works perfect and everybody happy. But how do you raise those 100,000 people to start with? So that's the problem that all companies in this industry have faced, and none of them was able to solve it. So that's where we started. It was like 15 months ago. At that time, I turned to two of my, well, actually, I just met two friends in my village. I was new in a new village. I was living in a new village with my family. I met two friends who are developers. I told them about these ideas, and we started working together in parallel to our day job. I was doing my postdoctoral research at the Technion in Israel, and one of them was working in eBay, Shai Zluf, and another one, Or Sokolovsky, was working in Verifone, that is building this transaction machines. So that's what was the beginning, and we also noticed what other companies have done in order to try to overcome this problem. Now, we try to come up with a completely different approach. I think very typical to Israel, maybe also to Netherlands. You'll tell me. And once we hit on that way of thinking, something very big opened up. So the way we thought is saying the following: Israel is a very small country, and the social connections are very, very strong. Which means that if I'm just meeting an average person in the street, in 3 minutes we'll find common friends, for sure. Almost every person that I will meet in the country. So we said, what's the problem? I mean, how many people do we need? We need 100,000 people to support developing this network. So let's just make a project with 100,000 partners. That's easy. If we have 100,000 partners, all of them will open the app at the right day, at the right time, and finished. We have the critical mass. From there on, to grow the network will be much, much easier. So that was the idea. And of course, also we are talking here about a huge industry. So, why not having 100,000 partners? And then many questions have been raised. So, okay, so if you have 100,000 partners, how do you collaborate with them? How do you collaborate with 100,000 partners? Some of them are full-time dedicated. Some of them just work 1 day a week, and maybe some of them are just opening the app in the right day, right? You have a whole spectrum of contribution. So how do you reward accordingly? How do you assign this reward to them? And so on. How do you make decision making together? Because they are partners, you need somehow to make decision together. And then gradually, we started building a model for organization that can act, they can collaborate and progress in a collective way. But it's not a communistic point of view or socialistic point of view, because not everyone are equal. So if someone is more devoted, more knowledgeable, more reputable in the society, in the community, in the network, then he will have more reputation and also more effect. His voice will have more effect in the network. So it's this kind of model. And of course, once we we're talking about value and reward, we understood that we need to be using tokens, some sort of tokens, and to generate our own economy. And at that point, we turned to Bitcoin space. We gave a phone call to a friend of a friend. He was the CEO of Mastercoin, who is a big company in the Bitcoin space. He's in Israel. And we told him about our idea. And he told us, okay, you have to come tomorrow to present this idea in a hackathon. And we said, well, we haven't done anything, just an idea. He said, what you've done is already enough. You just come and present. And so we presented that in the hackathon. We worked on it for a couple of days. From that hackathon, we got tickets to another hackathon in Texas. There we won third place and guarantee for $250,000. And then we understood that we hit the right place. So that's basically the real beginning of the story. Okay, so before I'm jumping into the whole model, let me tell you a little bit, just to close this story, let me tell you how we solved that problem for Lazuz, and then I'll tell you the general view. So in Lazuz, the way we build up this network is simply by, we have been releasing, some of you already have this app, we have been releasing an application. People can download their application to their smartphone. They can drive with it. It does nothing. They just broadcast their location to the servers. For that driving, they are entitled with tokens. We call them Zuz tokens. I'll tell you soon why. Later on, when there are there is enough user in the system, right away we will enable a ride-sharing application, and people could start driving together. So in that case, no individual is disappointed to be trying to operate a non-working service, because we're not saying it's working. We're saying it's not working. You're just playing in the game. As soon as there are a critical mass of people, we open up the ride-sharing application. And what is the incentive to do that? To participate ahead of time. The incentive is that you're receiving tokens. And the earlier you are, the more tokens you receive, and you accumulate those tokens. Once there is a real-time ride-sharing service established, those same tokens will be used to purchase from riders to drivers, to purchase those rides, and thus it will have a real value in the world. And that retrospectively reward those early adopters. So that's the idea. Any questions or please interruptions or anything?
It's only on Android.
Yeah, right now it's only on Android. It's also testing, still fixing algorithms and everything. Yeah, it's just testing phase. Yeah.
Do I understand correctly that then with the tokens you can buy a space in someone else's car?
Exactly, exactly. And more generally, we don't. So maybe let me tell you the broader vision. So then we understood you can actually widen this operation and connect all sort of transportation means into one platform and generate a multi-transportational system, and all, including a delivery, for example, system, or anything that you need. And on top of this platform, any service that you will purchase with Zeus tokens. And by that, you are supporting the community that was establishing and also maintaining this system.
So it could also be other things you can purchase?
Yes.
Like services or seeds?
Yes, and I would...
You say cookies?
Yes.
You say servers. How decentralized is it right now? Will it be totally decentralized?
No, it's not. Yeah, I will get there. Right now, so now gradually I will try to tell you about the bigger vision of decentralized organization. We are far, far, far from there. I will show you how it begins with Bitcoin, for example, and what is the broader vision. But still, there is a big, big gap to reach there. And I will tell you about the pillars that need to be established. The point here is that all companies, all organizations right now in the world have made the following decision. They said, look, we have a vision of decentralized organization, but we don't have the technology and models and all that to reach there. So we'll establish a company, a regular company, and we'll build those applications. Eventually, when things are ready, we'll make decentralized ourselves. That was the strategy that all applications and organizations have adopted so far. And we, from the day one, we said that we don't feel comfortable with that. We feel that we need to be decentralized from day one in order to really generate a decentralized organization. And so we never opened a company. We're not a company. We opened, I'll tell you more on that. We opened just recently a company, but it's not a Zeus company, it's an external company. And the organization itself is decentralized in that sense. Okay? So anyone is doing whatever he wants and contributing in any way he wishes. But we don't have yet the pillars that I will tell you about established. So in that sense, it's not fully decentralized, and you'll see in what sense, like in what exactly part of it. Yeah, more questions? Okay. So, yeah, so what maybe before I tell you a little bit more about decentralized organization and what it means, really, let me just show you examples of, I'm claiming that whenever a party introduced new kind of tools to build things and new kind of platforms to spread those ideas and new kind of revenue models, and this is important, the revenue model, then there was opening a flood of creation. For example, YouTube. So nowadays, people, well, before that was already tools that can make their own videos, and YouTube get the platform to broadcast those videos, and the revenue model, you can actually make money out of it. And immediately, in no time, in a few years, you have billions and billions of videos that anyone can participate in, and people actually are make living out of it, and companies are making videos and getting revenue out of it. So it's really created a flood of creation. Same thing happened with Apple, for example. They made the tools to build applications, the platform to broadcast or to spread those applications, the iStore, and the revenue model for that. And now in a few years, everyone are developing applications. So the thing is that the problem in our society in that sense, there is a lot of friction. There is a huge, huge amount of friction between what I want to do, what I think about my ideas, and my ability to produce them, to execute them. There is a huge gap. I mean, anyone who try to make entrepreneurships and build projects, companies, anything knows that. There's such a huge gap between the desire, the thinking, the idea, and the execution. So why is that? So what I will tell you about here, if you need to wrap up everything that I will tell you about, is all about reducing friction. It's about pulling out all these obstacles so that eventually I can take my idea, write it in one page, put it somewhere, and instantly this idea starts flowing, propagating, and being established by itself, by all people collecting together their efforts. Okay? So that's if I need really to wrap up everything that I will say today, I think it will be about reducing friction and barriers also.
I have a question. I think that the solution you introduced for fixing the chicken egg problem can you talk a little bit about what you're already seeing? Is it working, the early app, or are you really collecting kilometers? Do people stay engaged?
Right. We are. Let me answer it in a broader perspective, because specifically in Lazuz, it's really a testing phase, and we're not yet trying to push it forward for intentionally. I mean, for example, we don't want to have the critical mass ready before we have the ride-sharing app ready. So we're not pushing it forward, and it pushes itself, but we're trying actually not to push it. I think one good example to show that it works is Bitcoin. I mean, it grew from nothing to $5 billion economy in a few years, from nothing and with nothing. But I also think that it's not successful enough, and I can tell you more about what are the fallacies in the Bitcoin model and how we are curing them. So I think that, and if I'm not answering the question, please ask it again. So the general scheme here, sometimes it's called, by the way, it's a new field. It's really, this field was born, I mean, we kind of developed our ideas and suddenly got acknowledged that the same ideas are born everywhere in the world. That's always the case for good revolutions. So it's a new, fastly rising field, a year-old field. Well, of course, the roots are before, but it's really this maturity it got from this year. And so there are a lot of names, different names for the same thing. So the language is still built up. I'll try to give you some keywords. So for example, this scheme sometimes called decentralized application. And the scheme is the following, just as I described for transportation. The scheme is that you have some problem. You need to generate some critical mass for something, okay? This something can be anything. And actually, I claim that this problem exists everywhere in day-to-day life. I mean, we stopped seeing that. We see it every day. For example, just to give you an example, I'm a big fan of the environment, and I really don't like using those cups. But I do use them all the time. Because what can I do if I don't like using those cups, when I want just to buy orange juice? I can do two things. Well, I can just ignore that and be not aligned with my ideology. That's one thing. So the second thing, I can just decide not to purchase the cup or not to use or not to drink at that instant. Or third, I can just generate now a revolution and make petitions and press whoever I need to press in order to be using other cups. Now, none of them it makes sense because being disaligned with my ideology is bad generally. And also I'm not producing any progress. But the other options are also bad because they are making me to do, they are higher than the threshold that I'm willing to participate at that point, okay? So eventually it brings me to not participate. That's the point. So I'm saying that everywhere we have those critical mass problems. Now, why this is a critical mass problem? Because if all of us, and all of us not in this room, I mean all of us in, let's say in the Netherlands, or million people together would decide at an instant that they want to stop using that cup, instantly it will happen because there will be enough demand for that, enough alignment of interests. So the real problem is this alignment of interests, this alignment of actions. Just if I just jump to the future, and just for a thought experiment, imagine that all of us has something here that is connecting us completely, that we can make decisions together instantly. Just try to imagine how much power lies there. Like we can make a decision, million people can make one decision like that. I mean, if you just roll with this imagination, you will find out that they have more power than anything that you have ever observed or experienced. More than governments, more than anything. Just millions of people that have one united action. So we do meet this problem all the time. How do we solve that? So the idea is that we generate a token. And with this token, we generate a distribution protocol. Okay? Distribution protocol materializes basically in formula the statement whoever contributes to the network, to the goal, to the community, receive tokens accordingly to his contribution. That's basically the ideology, and then there are the algorithmics that manifest that ideology. Also, the more you are doing your contribution earlier, the more you are risking, because the farther you are from success, So the more stakes you have, the more you are risking, thus the more tokens you receive from a later contribution. And then you are building this network, this collaboration. As soon as you reach to your critical mass, you have a service, you have a product, whatever it is, you tied up the revenue model with that token, so that if there's a new service, people can purchase that service with that token. So all those people who are endpoint users who never participated in the creation now need to purchase that token. Now that token has value, and that's how you created value for early adopters. So that's the scheme. Okay. So you can think of these tokens as a potential credit, okay, assigned by the building community, but fulfilled, paid by the future endpoint users in the future if the community establishes. Okay? That's the idea about these tokens. Now, why Bitcoin, by the way? So two things. Firstly, so Bitcoin made two big breakthroughs in one step. And everybody are familiar with one of them and not the second. So the second is just what I said now. Bitcoin was the first example for that scheme. And the first breakthrough of Bitcoin was the technology. So now if we want to have such a decentralized collaboration, I will elaborate more on what it means, then we need to have some machinery that enables us to carry this collaboration, but there is a missing link. And the link is that if we to have this collaboration in this centralized manner, we need to agree about what is the status right now. If I'm talking about tokens, so how many tokens I have and how many tokens you have. So we need to agree about that. So we need some sort of a decentralized consensus mechanism, which is technologically a problem. So if I have, all the numbers of each of us, how many tokens he has, so I have it on my computer and you have it on your computer. So either we have it on external server and then it's not decentralized and whoever controls the server is also controlling the economy. Or we have it on my server, on your server, on his servers, but then how do I know that you're not changing the spreadsheets in your server? And so on and so forth. So that's the breakthrough of Bitcoin. Bitcoin managed to come up with a technological trick or mathematical trick that makes sure that we all hold the consensus, the state, and none of us can change it without everyone else seeing that it was changed. Okay? That's the breakthrough of Bitcoin. Okay, so having that, more questions before?
So we have to leave, so thanks a lot.
Sure. Thank you.
One vote is in.
What?
Yeah, one vote is in.
One vote is in. Excellent. Okay. Feel free, by the way, really.
You said there were two breakthroughs Bitcoin made.
Yeah.
Can you just name one?
One is the technology to hold decentralized consensus, or if you want, the centralized database.
Blockchain?
The blockchain. Thank you. And the second one is this scheme that you distribute tokens that later on will be worth, if the operation is successful, will worth assets. And so that was the first example. So one is a theoretical idea, scheme, a strategy, and then there is technological. Okay. So what is the decentralized organization? So decentralized organization is a community or a network with a set of rules, with protocols. Basically, that's what it's a fancy. I mean, decentralized autonomous organization is a fancy name. It just means a network with a set of rules. Okay. Now, specifically, the new thing here is that carries value. So these tokens have some value in them. Otherwise, it's not very different from social network we had before. Okay. So that's the set of rules and the value that it carries, and of course, it carries it in a decentralized way. Okay. So, for example, what can you do with that? You can generate a community with shared ownership, shared stake. So now all participants, for example, what happens in the old business model? You have company, you have stakeholders, you have the founders and developers or workers, and then early adopters and users. Now these are very different sectors with very different set of rules, with very different opportunities, with very different participation model, very different revenue model, if at all, right? And here I'm talking about a continuous spectrum. Everyone are playing under the same set of rules. You can be more contributor than investor, more early adopter than contributor, more endpoint user than early adopter. It all depends on you. But you can participate in any way that you can, and the rules of the game are predefined. So you can just position yourself wherever you want. But there is a whole continuous spectrum of people. So in some sense, it's not a discrete ownership. It's not like owned by them and not owned by them. It's like more owned by those peoples and maybe less owned by those peoples and less owned by those peoples. And each person can choose where he's positioning himself, but it's a shared ownership. Okay? It encourages participation. For example, what is the biggest problem of companies? And people here are probably familiar with that. Marketing. I mean, okay, you have a great product, but how you reach your customers? So I can tell you already from the little experience we have in Lazuz that you need to change the whole notion of marketing. When we come to people, we're not saying them, look, we are a company, we're building a service and you will use it and pay us. No, we're telling them, look, we have a great vision for a project. Let's do that together. Now the reaction to that thinking is completely different. It's not only about the money that is here. It's not about that the user will earn some money, which is also happening in other companies who pays out some points or credits, or Uber is giving $80 for your first ride or something like that. It's not about the money. It's about the partnership, about the feeling what I can already tell you from our experience is that there is a huge adoption. So not only everyone we meet want to join, to download, to purchase tokens, to invest, to help in contribution, but also they are becoming promoters themselves instantly. So I think the whole notion of marketing will be changed, completely changed. There is no need for marketing. The marketing is built into the model.
Yeah, we see that already within the Seeds to Meet network, where we don't have a sales marketing and PR department.
Right.
And those tasks basically are done by the network.
Exactly.
And it's not being paid for whatsoever. It's part of our social capital scheme, as we call it.
Exactly.
So that means that our central organization only consists of 4 people. That's it. In the old days, you would need, let's say, at least 40 to 50 people to make the whole thing work.
Exactly. So that's exactly, and it's a big thing. It's a big thing. So the propagation.
I don't control the department as such anymore. And if I screw up as an organization, I'm lost. And I don't determine what the marketing people in the field have to say, have to do, or so you have to lose your control. You don't manage it anymore.
Right.
It's there or it isn't there.
Right. It's evolutionary, succeeding or not succeeding. Right. So, as I say, there is more value for more contribution. There is more value for higher risk. And there is a decentralization of power. There is no centralized point of power. So if there is a decentralized point of power, a centralized point of power equals centralized point of failure. Okay? So there is no such thing.
That's giving the strength.
Yeah, exactly. And
because if you look at, let's say, the network doing our marketing as a traditional organization, you could never afford to hire 40, 50, 60,000 people.
exactly.
And then when you payroll to the market.
Exactly.
So it's much stronger than the traditional organizations.
It's much stronger. It's much wider. You have much more resources. Suddenly you have 100,000 workers for no money, and also it's much more close to nature. Actually, it's an ecology. Okay, it's really a human ecology. It's a emergent organic structure. So you start with basic flat rules, and then people play those rules, and suddenly you get this nonlinear effect, and you get a huge ecology. From grassrooted rules, you get emergent phenomena. This encourages spontaneous contribution. Yeah.
As a physician, are you trained in complex adaptive systems and such?
So, sorry again?
As a physician.
Yeah, physicist. Oh, yes, sir.
Physicist. Are you trained in complex adaptive systems and you call emergent properties?
Yeah.
This is actually your field of
So,
curious.
yeah, so it's not my, how to say that. There is a field in physics called just that, complex systems, and it's not that my field, but I'm coming from a field which indirectly have just that. So you're right. Yeah. So you have you can have very simple rules, and suddenly you fine-tune parameter, and you find out that you have emergent phenomena which looks completely different, and it's one of the most fascinating things in physics today. I mean, well, this is off topic, but so much different. Then you can find out that this emergent phenomena is living in different dimensions even. So it's Yeah, the effect of nonlinear is you cannot emphasize more or appreciate more. Sorry. Okay, so this kind of organization is encouraging spontaneous contribution. I just got in love with something. I can have 2 hours free time. I can just contribute something right on the go. But for that, we need tools so that I can actually, in 5 minutes, understand what is the desired, needed contribution, and how can I just do that. This is already getting related to the serendipity machine, and I will tell you more about that. We have a very aligned vision. It has a huge efficiency, high network propagation, so that's very important. So in a centralized hierarchic manner, it's very hard for information to propagate upwards. Like if there is a boundary worker downstairs, it will be very hard to propagate. So the CEOs are the bottlenecks of all of this story. Here, the propagation is very, very high, so that boundary effects can be very important. For example, in YouTube, imagine 7 years old child just putting some video on YouTube. It can be easily propagate and become viral. So here we take this as a value. We encourage that high propagation such that all information can flow all over the place, such that whenever, maybe that person over there and that person over there, they just need each other. So if the information is flowing very fast, that they will, match each other.
What happens if in such a decentralized situation, there's a group of people that go into existence and they have an ID based on something where there are no pre-described rules within the whole system? Another group would come up and they would probably fight those IDs because there are no basic agreements on it. How do you prevent war?
How to prevent war? Let me try to understand if I understand correctly. You're asking what happened, so now there is one group acting with one set of rules.
You need to have the basic set of rules in agreement before you start the whole system, right?
Yeah, but each system will have its own basic set of rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if there's a group within the system that gets up and starts a new development within that system.
Well, perfect. So what happens, yeah, I jumped about that, but you know GitHub. So that's the same thing. You have tree. I'm developing code, and someone can make push request, and I can agree or not agree. And let's say at some point we want to diverge, so it's just making hard fork and opens a new code, new tree. That's the same thing here. They can always a group can choose to hard fork the system and make another group, and the evolution decides which project is good, successful, and which is bad. But war, I'm not sure I'm solving wars. So.
For GitHub, it's the same system or the same problem.
Yeah.
Two divergences and there's one core vision behind it. Then
Yeah.
at some point they must collide or.
And evolution will decide
Especially because there's not one leader.
Yeah. So there is no. That's true. So this model is not socialistic. It doesn't try to avoid competition, and it's also not capitalistic because it's not discouraging or disacknowledging the power of sharing. Because you see, we can hard fork, but there is a large potential not to. So we have the same tokens. If you're doing right action, you are raising the value of tokens, which are also my tokens. So this is an internal incentive for collaboration. Okay, that's an important thing. That's the social part of this model. But also, just as you say, always we can just hard fork. But there is a high potential for hard fork. There is a high price for this hard fork. That's what makes the balance between social and capital in between. But if evolutionary two groups will just divide, we will compete. And finally, this decentralized organization, just as what I described before about this decentralized application scheme, this is the resolution for what I actually want to tell you and forgot about it, is about the Nash equilibrium. Let me just tell you one sentence about Nash equilibrium. So you remember in the beginning of the talk I told you why is it so hard to make cooperation? So the answer is simply a mathematical statement. It's just the Nash equilibrium. So if we are all individuals which are non-cooperating, this state is in equilibrium. Means that if just I'm myself changing my habits will just cause me to lose. And there is no incentive to change my habits alone. And same thing, there is no incentive to change for 1,000 change their habit, but there is a critical mass only when they change their habits, only then they gain. And then everyone gains, and eventually make the transition to a new equilibrium of corporations. So the big question, the mathematical question is how you make the transition from a non-cooperative equilibrium, Nash equilibrium, into a cooperative Nash equilibrium. That's the really big question. And this decentralized application model just does that. It offers a transition from non-cooperative state into a cooperative state via giving early incentive, which is a potential value, but in proportion to your risk, the potential gain. And that more people want to join in, and gradually it's becoming a snowball effect or pyramid effect, and eventually it happens. Now, saying pyramid, many people are complaining about telling this is a pyramid scheme, and we have very bad connotations about pyramid scheme. And my answer is that yes, it is a pyramid scheme, but it's a good one. So what is a bad pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme? It's a scheme where the first is earning from the second, and the second is earning from the third, and all the way to the bottom. And eventually, the bottom layer is simply losing their money, and that's it. And they are paying for this money to all the rest of the pyramid. Here, we do have this pyramid. The early one are putting their energy and risking the most, and thus also gaining the most. And they are risking less and gaining less, and they are risking less. And eventually, also here, the bottom end user who never contribute anything are simply just paying. And they are paying the development of the whole thing. But they are not just losing money. They are paying for a service that was established, and this is the development team. So they are just endpoint users. So this is why it's a good pyramid scheme. So it's good because it's a viral scheme, but and it's also good because it's not there is no scheme. Well, it's the scheme. It's not a scam. Okay.
Shall we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, I can speak for another hour or as much as you want. You tell me. Yeah.
Fine. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Before I start, any questions or ideas or suggestions?
I have a question I'm curious about, but I guess it's a bit theoretical for you to answer, but maybe you have an answer. I think so. The platform we are running has no tokens for incentivizing, so it's purely based on, let's say, goodwill or something like that. Well, that's also an assumption. It's based on something that is not tokens.
Social capital.
Social capital. Yeah. And I've seen platforms switch from being like totally free to credits and tokens, and it increases sometimes it increases the dynamics massively. So a lot more starts happening. But I think there's also some research and theories in psychology that show once you create an extrinsic motivation, that actually, motivation goes down in the long run.
Very good.
What's your
Yeah, excellent. That's a question I've been thinking about for a while. So you see, I completely agree with you, and I think that external value really kills internal value. External value kills internal incentive.
Right.
Now I make a suggestion. I cannot prove it. I haven't made the research on it, but that's my feel. That's my hunch. Is that those tokens? I always tell that to people. Those tokens are better than cash. I think people ask me why, but it's not cash. I'm saying it's better than cash because cash really destroys your inner incentive. You're working for me, but those tokens, just the fact that they are potential value, it's just more like a stakes or equity in this thing rather than cash, is actually better because it allows you both feeling part of it and perhaps gain value and keep your internal incentive intact. That's my suggestion. I don't know. There is a joke. Let me see if I remember it. I think there is one guy asking a favor from his neighbor. He says he's very busy and he needs help to take his car to the garage. Can he take his car to the garage? He says, yes, of course, I'll do you the favor for you. And he's taking the car to the garage. The next day, he's coming to his neighbor and saying, can you take my car to the garage? I'll pay you $20. He said, well, am I your chauffeur? So people would do better favors than get paid for that. So that's the idea here. It's not like a favor. You're getting value for that. But value is more a symbol. This value is more a symbol of partnership rather than cash. And I think it's better than that. That's supposed to answer.
So as long as it's potential, it's better. And then what starts happening as soon as it turns into the credit system? Basically.
Right. Right, so I think there is a gradual transition from a community of collaborators to a community of adapters and users and maintainers, which is more like a work, day job. You're right. And then it's more hard. And there is no sharp cutoff. It's a gradual transition where the open market value of those tokens become more tangible, and it's correlated with the adoption rate of that kind of project. So it's a gradual transition from community of collaborators and partners to community of workers and end users and maintainers and developers.
Yeah, we have separated both systems. May I
Yeah.
respond, Ronnie?
Sure.
So we have the social capital part, and with the free co-working, as we call it over here. And we have the meeting rooms, and that's a real capital. And the stronger this group is, the better professionals they become, etc., etc. So they get assignments. So then all of a sudden they are in need of meeting rooms and office spaces and insurances and collaboration software and whatsoever. And they pay for it because they made money, not as an economic entity. Of course, we get a little money out of here, so that enables us to do more offerings and to make this even more grow. And then all of a sudden you get a whole, let's say we started out with 1 seat for 2.5 commercial seats, and now already it's up to 2.85 commercial seats. So we see that the more you give, the more you get, and also in the end, in a monetary way. But again, I agree with you. You must avoid the point where one system starts to kill the other. That we separated it. For the time being, we will keep it separated as well.
Do you see a way for the Zeus to keep it separated?
So
If they have a system like this with the tokens and everything, and this becomes their service part, let's say like ride sharing or other services, then everybody understands you move from one world to another and you start paying for the services over there.
So I'll comment on that. I think it's a great example. I think that the ideal situation is where we have a continuum. Okay, that's ideal situation. But you need to gradually make the transition from from separation to continuum, and you make that just by that kind of operation. You're making mutual interests which pays each other, and then gradually making closer and closer. You also sometimes you open some channel for transitions of people from that group to another, and gradually you're making transition from separate entities into a continuum. But that's also, yeah, so we're trying to build the model of continuum, but definitely already there you have some sort of sector-like features.
Just because if I understand your model correctly, then what you make by means of tokens will be directly transferable into money or into rights later.
Yes.
But I think there's another thing that is, which you explained in the training, which is reputation. So you do have two value systems.
Right.
Tokens for one, and reputation. It's very important within the.
Yeah. We'll tell now. I think now we'll try to tell more about that. Yeah. Now I forgot that I have this, so now I can draw. I like drawing, so let me start drawing things. Okay. So let's see. So much to say, but we'll just random walk between ideas, if you don't mind. Okay. So let's see. A decentralized organization. I must say I don't like this terminology, decentralized autonomous organization. I feel that there is a better name for that. Doesn't capture everything. It doesn't capture the essence that it's rewarding people. It's too technical. If you can come up with a better name, because we are building the language also at the same time. We thought about a natural, collective, organic, cooperative. What?
Organism like thing, but
Yeah.
organization already had the word organic until the industrialists built it, Taylor wanted us to build it.
Yeah.
Now it's a mechanism.
So if you have better names, bring them on. So I will tell you about decentralized organization in more details, how they work. I will tell you about a little bit about how. So what I want to say, I want to tell you about the tools, the pillars that you need to have here so that it will work, 3 pillars. And then I will try to expand as much as you have the patience, I will expand on those pillars. And so this will be a technology, and this will be models or protocols. And this will be platform. Now, so I'm saying that these are pillars need to be established. I'm saying that all of them are being built in these very days. It will take, I don't know, a year, or maybe 2 years for full maturity. And I'm claiming that once those 3 are done, there will be a singularity in humanity, and it will be a huge transition almost instantly. Instantly in humankind time scale. I don't know if it takes 1 year, 5 years, but that's roughly the time. The world will change drastically from one phase to another. It's called in physics phase transition. There will be phase transition upon the establishment of these kind of 3 pillars. Okay? A phase transition from a society of individual to society of corporations. It will be. I cannot emphasize more. I'm claiming this phase transition will be larger than the phase transition of internet, and will affect every aspect of our life. And I'll try to give you the vision why and how it's going to happen. Okay? Okay. So the technology. So I must say there are different ways to separate these pillars. Something can be put as technology or platform. I can bring some things from here to there and back. So it's somewhat arbitrary how I paint it right now. So let me focus here with the technology on specifically on the blockchain technology. So blockchain. So as I said, the blockchain is the technological tool that enables a community and an infinite number of people to agree on anything, okay? Agree on a consensus. So this is the blockchain. I'm not sure if, maybe you tell me if you're interested, first if you know about what the blockchain is, and secondly if you're interested, maybe I can skip it. I'm not sure how interested you are in how it works or how it's important.
I'm curious about how it facilitates organic principles and social behavior. That's why I'm interested.
Okay.
That's the connection there.
Okay. I will
Not
touch
so
on that.
much how technically it's done.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Trust the technicians for that.
Yeah, they know their
Okay.
specialty, I hope.
Okay. No, but it's done in a very, very different way. Okay, so I'll talk more about that aspect. Now, the big thing here, we call it, well, not we, but people call it programmable. No, programmable, I guess there is another M here. Programmable blockchain. So you see, the first blockchain that was built by Bitcoin, by the Bitcoin developers, was a rigid blockchain. It carried one operation, okay? And with a very specific way. Now tomorrow I want to put another operation. So I need to hard code it, either to make a new blockchain or to hard code it into on top of one blockchain. It's a whole new topic. It's called blockchain, Bitcoin 2.0 or blockchain 2.0, how you are able to hard code different operations on one blockchain. This is, again, but it's a lot of work. Each new operation needs to be hard coded. Now there is a new visionary road, which I'm talking about programmable blockchain. And this is the leading team that develops that is called Ethereum. You probably heard about it. We are in close touch with them.
Weren't they acquired by IBM recently, or is there collaboration going on there? Or?
No. So
They're using it for Internet of Things.
Okay.
Yeah, but they were not acquired by IBM, but IBM has now just released some sort of version which uses Ethereum. Yeah.
Okay. This is not a vote, but I need to
Yeah.
then go. I'll be back.
Sure. Okay, so what do I mean by programmable blockchain? I mean that there is the technology for consensus, and here I will also write smart contracts. Smart contracts, which means that now I would like to implement rules. I would like to implement protocols. So each time I would like to implement different protocols, whatever I want to implement. So a programmable blockchain basically lets you in a few line of codes to implement on the blockchain whatever rules that you want. Okay? That's called the programmable blockchain. That's what Ethereum is building. It's similar to what you have in the internet. So firstly, people are inventing building blocks. So this was the Bitcoin. And now we are inventing a layer that can use several building blocks together and making something more complex. And then you're inventing another layer was using these building blocks and making it more complex. So we are talking about these kind of layers. So 1.0 usually is referring to that layer of building blocks, the blockchain. And 2.0 is usually referring for building things, different things of blockchains. So this will be the programmed blockchains. And the 3.0 is usually referred to applications on this kind of building blocks, and that's what the thing that I'm talking about. So I'm talking about blockchain 3.0. By the way, so let me just write it here. So there is 1.0. This is the pure technology. 2.0 is rigid, pure technology. This is more dynamic or fluid, dynamic or programmable, and these are application. Okay? Now this classification can be done for blockchain. It can be done for web. So website 1.0, it was just just the web, the simple web that you know. Actually, the web itself has this structure, but the web 1.0 is just the web as it is. The web 2.0 allows you again to dynamically build the web. For example, like Wix. You know Wix? You can dynamically, without being a programmer, you can dynamically build websites easily. And then 3.0 will allow you to dynamically build application on the web. So you can make this classification for the web, for blockchain, for open source technology, for social network, and eventually for society. And when I will reach that's where I want to reach. I will talk about a platform which is Society 3.0. And I borrowed the name from Ronald, but this is what we are speaking about. Building a Society 3.0, building the platform that will allow any person, not a programmer, any person build up a decentralized application just as easy as he's nowadays building a Facebook group. Okay, that's where we're heading. Okay? So that's about the technology. Then the models. Okay, so I told you in general lines how a decentralized organization looks like, but I haven't told you actually what are the protocols. And this will need to be taken down to earth. There are specific algorithmic protocols. So for example, if I'm talking about a decentralized decision making, so here it can be, so which kind of protocol? So firstly, the distribution protocol. Distribution protocol, which means that I need to somehow in decentralized manner decide how many tokens to assign to each action, okay? And I will elaborate on that if you wish. I will be happy to elaborate on that protocol. And you can also enter here decision making, although it's not separated because most of the decision making is the distribution. But you can also decide about changing the protocol. That's the extra part. And finally, the platform. So let's say that we have 1 million people that want to collaborate on one idea, and they have the rules of the game, and they have the technology to agree about what they are doing, but still they need to have the platform. How they communicate, how do I know what he's doing, that I'm here, how do I know what is the organization is building with, how do I know, how do I build the content together, where do we make decision together, where do we assign value for each other, and so on and so forth. So this is the platform. We sometimes call it decentralized. This is really decentralized, collaborative platform. And again, if you have a good name for that, do let me know. So this is like the overall vision. What I thought to talk more. So by the way, here in distribution protocols, this is This is related to economy. Because once you have a token, and you're talking about distribution, you're talking about economy. This is economy. So in fact, we have made a new type of economy, which we believe is much healthier, sustainable, and so on. So what I can, now in the rest of the time, I can tell you more about the distribution protocol and the economy behind it. It's a fascinating
I
thing.
call that the interdependent economy.
Interdependent economy.
It's interdependent
Yeah.
between us.
Yeah. So this is one thing I can talk about. I can talk about decentralized decision making, and I can talk about this the furthest view about the collaborative platform, which is just a very wide generalization of what you have, which is called a decentralized, all-reaching generalization, universal generalization of what you have, what you call the serendipity machine, basically.
I have a question about your distribution.
Yeah.
One of the key elements of any monetary system is the amount of money floating around.
Right.
If you want to avoid inflation or deflation,
Right.
somebody must control the amount of money.
Right.
Usually that has been the role of the bankers. In Bitcoin, the number of coins in total is restricted, they say. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it's being controlled over there. It has nothing to do with the value. That it has to do with inflation or deflation.
Right.
How do you solve that problem over there? And is there some kind of one man, one vote? I mean, one task.
Perfectly. So you asked one question about that and one question about that. Yes. So I will answer those questions. By the way, just for the teaser, you're talking about this about central banks. And I'm talking about decentral banks.
I know, but the problem is still there.
I agree. So I can tell, so I'll tell you. The point number one is very, very mature. We have roughly the protocol completed. This protocol is roughly completed, and I think it's a big thing. These two are in the making, and I can just tell you where, some suggestion, how it's going to look like, and so on. This is about economy, this is about governance, and this is about collaboration. So I will definitely answer those two questions. Can we make a quick vote? I mean, do you understand what I'm referring here to, right? So who is voting for? What is the most interesting of those three? Who is voting for economy? 2. Who is voting for decision making, governance? 3. 4. Who is voting for platform, collaboration platform? You can vote twice. Sorry, yeah. From the beginning, again. Distribution protocols.
Start with one, then do the second.
Oh, so you're saying I can do all of them? Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because they're interlinked anyway.
Completely. Okay, so let's start with economy. So let's start with decision. Yeah, let's try that. No, that doesn't work well. Okay. I thought maybe it's something colorful. Okay, so yeah. So let's talk about distribution protocol. So let me, to introduce you to these two first questions, let's discuss for a moment about Bitcoin. So I'm claiming that Bitcoin already satisfies those three, already has a distribution protocol, a decentralized distribution protocol, already has a decentralized decision making. This is something most people are not aware of, and already has a platform. And I will tell you, I will also tell you that it is in each of those aspects, the Bitcoin is a very, very narrow example which need to be changed and widened. Okay? So let's before I jump in that, let's discuss the Bitcoin. So what is the distribution protocol? So just distribution protocol. So distribution protocols basically, as I said before, manifest the idea that wherever you contribute, you are being rewarded with tokens, right? So what is giving you tokens in Bitcoin?
Mining.
Right, mining. And let me ask you, is mining the only? So mining is very important. That's what secures the network and keep it secured. But let me ask you, is that the only operation required for building the Bitcoin network?
We need to create Bitcoins. It doesn't necessarily.
No, I'm asking, this is the only action that is needed to complete the Bitcoin project. So far from that, there is coding. Coding doesn't. So mining, yeah, get contribution. If you make code, writing code, no reward for that. If you're making design or website, no reward for that. If you're making marketing, then no reward for that, and so on and so forth. So I'm just saying that in Bitcoin, you're algorithmically rewarding one specific set of actions, and which is very successful. Now let's see how successful it is. So miner sector in Bitcoin, how well established is it? So the answer is fully. So 2V, because
It's slowing down already.
it's not only, it's slowing down because it actually reached its peak. It's reached the peak of saturation. So this market, this sector is fully saturated. Why? Because it's being rewarded. How well the coding sector is saturated in Bitcoin? How many core team developers are working on a $3 to $5 billion economy? You would guess. So the answer is 5. Five coder developers are working on $3 to $5 billion economy. How can it be imagined? How has such thing?
Wait a second.
Yeah.
No, go on.
Yeah. So the point, why? Because it's not rewarded. It's indirectly rewarded because some big actors in the game said, okay, we'll pay, salaries for those who write code, and they pay 5 salaries. So those people who hold hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin pay 5 salaries. Okay? You can imagine that such a company will pay 500 developers to develop this economy, but it doesn't work because indirect.
300.
300? Why?
300 developers on the main branch in GitHub.
Right, but not core team developers.
No, no, no.
So that includes.
You're right. I see 5, 6 regular developers.
Right. So that's anyone that ever contribute one line of code ever.
Yeah.
And even 300, it's little. I mean, in Lazuz, I think we can get to 300 in a few months if we just had the tools for that, which I will discuss. We already more than 60 people contributed in Lazuz, and most of them were falling out because we didn't have the right tools for this collaboration. So we ask how well these sectors are saturated, and the answer is none. There is no. It's really lagging behind, and that's what's really disrupting the adoption of Bitcoin. One of the reasons for disrupting the adoption of Bitcoin. Okay, so a very minor, very narrow. So what is the answer? The answer is reward anything, any valuable contribution. Okay, so that's the answer. But for that we need new protocols, because if you are talking about any valuable contribution, it means that I'm doing some action. It cannot be algorithmically evaluated. The only way to evaluate this action is to get the feedback from the whole network and then algorithmically make that feedback into concrete number of tokens. Okay, so that's what we call decentralized reward mechanism. Second thing, how many tokens are issued each time? So some decentralized applications simply issue all the tokens at once, and then it's not decentralized at all because some people acquire these tokens and they are really running the operation. Bitcoin are releasing every 10 minutes, are releasing a number of tokens. Right now it's 25 Bitcoins. So what's the problem with that? Given a specific rate of tokens, it means that you are limiting the amount of reward. So this is limited. So the second thing is this limited reward in the Bitcoin. Again, what's the problem? It means that no matter, even if you open those sectors, the volume of reward that you are rewarding every 10 minutes is limited, is fixed. Which means that if you need more, you won't have more, because that is the pace of development. It's dictated a priori. So if you want to have but maybe the world they can adapt much faster your operation. So you need to have unlimited released tokens.
Enter inflation.
Right. So how do you, then there is the problem of, do you have inflation or not?
Monetary inflation or price inflation?
Very good.
Because this is at the fundamental of the discussion in Holland.
Right.
You're talking about a gold-based economy of Bitcoin, or a debt-based economy, or current fiat money. And the judge is still out on that. So it will
will suggest a model that solve all these at once. So inflation, it will solve reward any value, it will solve unlimited release tokens, and it will also solve inflation. It will be actually deflationary model. In the beginning, where we need the capital, and it will be eventually slightly inflationary at the end of the point where we want people use the tokens and not hold them in their wallets. Okay? Yeah, so these are the two main things. So what is the solution that I'm offering? So what's the problem? Well, no, it's one more thing. The problem is that here you have fixed a number of tokens at each time. So fixed number of tokens, what's the problem with that? Is leading to volatility. That's another problem. So volatility means that now if there are fluctuations in the demand, in the belief of the community, in the demand of tokens, it immediately translates into fluctuation in the rate of tokens, which we call volatility. And that's one of the biggest barriers for Bitcoin adoption, as everyone that is holding Bitcoin here is surely aware of. And right now is stressed because Bitcoin is crashing down. Well, I personally, because most of my stakes are in Bitcoin. But so that's a big problem. So we'd like to cure that as well. So, but you see, already I already hinted about the solution, because you see, the origin for volatility is the fact that you have a fixed number of Bitcoins, but I already said here that I want to release this number here. So actually that will serve both problems at once. So now let's suggest a new model, or let's suggest first a new wrong model. So let's suggest a peg token. So how peg token behaves? Something in batteries. Oh, sorry. Okay, so how can I come here? Should I? Okay. So how a peg token behaves? A peg token means that you're just choosing value, external value in the world. Let's say cost of 1 kilometer of
drive, if it's Zeus, or the cost of oil, or if it's Bitcoin, I don't know, cost of something, of cost of living. And you're simply pegging your token, fully pegging your token to some external value, which means that how do you do that? Whenever, let's say right from that, just now for the example.
Is that the same as the gold standard?
Yeah, exactly, the gold standard. So you're pegging, let's say you're pegging one Zeus, just for example, to $1. I want to peg the Zeus to the dollar. Okay? How do I do that? Well, very simple. Whenever someone wants to purchase a Zeus, is just sending me $1, okay? And I will create a new token and send him back, right? On the other hand, whenever someone will send me his Zeus token, I will destroy that token and send him back $1. That's simple, okay? That's the way to fully peg a token to some other external value, in this case the dollar. But it can be the gold, and that's just what the US government did for dollar with respect to the gold. Now, what's the problem here? Firstly, if there are fluctuations, okay, so I'm just holding, once I'm obtaining that dollar, I'm keeping it in a safe, and then I can always trade it back. So that's fine.
I was going to say, what's the problem? Ask it to the Swiss.
Why is that?
They put a Swiss franc to the euro, and they had to leave that.
Right.
Because it was blowing up their balance sheet.
Right. So the problem here is twofold. Firstly, okay, in relation to what I'm talking about, remember I told you that I want to reward people for their actions with my tokens. So I will reward with Zeus any contribution, valuable contribution, not me, but the community. But then I won't have enough backing in my account of dollars to back up all the Zeus tokens out there, right? So that's one problem. So what is the problem? One is that not enough reserve. And the second problem is that no incentive for early adopters. So if the token is fully pegged to external value, so there is no incentive to be there first. I mean, if first or second or third, they will all get $1 for one Zuz for $1. That's it. So I just ruined the good thing from the Bitcoin. Okay? So that's one problem. I simply cannot back my funds right now if I want to distribute tokens for contributions. And secondly, I have no incentive for early adopters. So I just ruined the two best thing of Bitcoins. Okay? So how do I cure that? So that's a problematic model. The way to cure that is what we call partial pegged token. And now, so let's say that now I peg the Zuz to, again, let's just do the dollar, just for example, okay? So now I have an upper margin and a lower margin, okay? Now, this is upper margin, and this is a lower margin. Whenever someone sends me that amount of dollar, he's receiving one Zuz token, because that is my selling rate. I'm selling the token for an upper margin. Whenever someone is sending me back the Zuz tokens, I burn it out of circulation and give him back dollars with that rate. So it's upper margin and lower margin. So that I'm claiming curing both problems. Let's see. And keeping constraining volatility to some extent.
How do you call it? Slang overeenkomsten in valutahandel. The old exchange programs we had within Europe, when we all had our individual currencies. You call that the snake movement.
So this partial peg token is not, as I described right now, is not totally new. But I will tell you the most important feature, which is new and which will cure those problems. So, okay, so firstly, how did it cure the two problems that the problem that I can spread tokens to whoever I want. So I do that, but I still can back them up all, and I keep full reserve. I do back up all tokens out there, but simply I reduce the lower rate to be able to back that. So the lower rate now is defined to be the amount of fund, of dollar in fund, in reserve fund, over the number of Zuz tokens in the world. So I simply saying, look, that's the fund I gathered from purchasers, but I also distribute token to non-purchasers, to contributors, so this same fund will be divided to more tokens. And that will define the rate of tokens, so I can back everything. So it just lowers the fund. Take down the lower margin. Now people ask me, but isn't that making inflation? And the answer is no. Because if the distribution is properly acted, it means that this contribution has increased, not the fund, but the value of the project, right? He made code that increased right now. We don't see that yet because it's a local action, but it's increased the value of the company, so to say. So this just reflects that. So so you can think of this fund as the fund of the community. No one can open that fund, not founders, no one can open the fund. The only way to reach that fund is to send your own tokens to the fund. They are burnt, and your part of the wallet is coming back to you. So it's a community fund, and basically when a developer is doing contribution, giving him new tokens is like taking our ones and diluting them is like taking our ones and giving him part of our own tokens. So it's just, and we do that if we could, ideally just with the measure of the value that is increasing the project by his action. Okay? So that's about the lower margin. What about, okay, so I won't tell, let me skip that. Well, let me come back maybe later about how do I fix them. So this is dynamically fixed, this is dynamical, and this is also dynamical but fixed in another way. We may discuss it later. But I still didn't cure the second problem. How do I give early adopters more incentive? So the answer to that is whenever someone is purchasing tokens with this margin, right? So now someone has, you remember I told you that I'm distributing tokens with respect to the value that is increased in the project, right? So let's see what happens here. Someone has made an action, is purchased tokens. So he sent, let's say that this upper is now $1.50. Okay? So someone just sends in $3. Okay? I send him, so this is the system. So the system is creating new 2 Zeus tokens and send back. But how much value was added, assuming that, and I will explain you later why, eventually, at the end of the game, this window will close if the project is successful and the token will be fully paid, eventually. Okay? Because it doesn't need further, or almost fully pegged, because it doesn't need further funding. And then we do want the token to be non-deflationary and even slightly inflationary because we want people to use the tokens rather than collect them. So eventually they will close up. So I'm asking you, if he's just put in $3, how much value he really added to the system? So the answer is 3 Zeus tokens. Because eventually the real value, realistic value is 3, and he added 3 Zeus tokens. But I just sent him 2. So what do I do with the remaining Zeus tokens? I just spread it to the community. The whole community as a dividend with respect to their proportional Zeus holding. So as long as the project succeeds, as long as more Zeus are being created, also at the same time more Zeus are being distributed to the community. And that's what gives early timers a bigger incentive. Okay?
I mean by being a success that there is no longer a necessity to re-exchange your Zeus tokens for dollars.
Agree. Completely agree. Once you fully peg that, you can forget about the dollars. They have their own value by themselves.
Yes,
Agree.
their own value by themselves.
Agree.
You're part of an ecosystem where you can spend and get the tokens.
Right.
There's no
Right. So now the upper margin, I must tell you that until a week ago, we had a suggestion for this upper margin, which was the mirror of the lower margin so that they will close together. But we knew that it's just a placeholder. We looked for the right one. And now I know what is the right one. We're still developing the formula, but I'll tell you what is the right one in words. The right one in words is that this should be the open market. There would be open market value if such open market. So this basically destroys the open market here. There will be no open market here, but only open market in between. So now the project can be here, the open market value can be here, and then the project succeeds, it can raise to here, until finally it hits the upper margin, and then everybody are coming to purchase tokens from the system, the volume is growing. So you see in economy, 2 things are breathing. You can either breathe, so you can either change, either the volume of tokens is changing with demand of, so again, either, let's say you are fixing the rate of tokens, then demand and supply fluctuations turn into fluctuation of the volume of tokens. Or you can fix the volume of tokens, and then the fluctuations of demand and supply fluctuates the rate of token. Okay? You can play with this too. What this model does is that as long as the rate is between those 2 margins, the fluctuations turn into fluctuation of rates. Once it hits the margin, the fluctuation, the breadth, is fluctuating the volume of tokens. Okay? Roughly. I see.
I'm wondering how you come to that in an algorithm.
This is very simple. To put it in place and to implement that. Yeah, that's very simple. To implement that. Now,
But you know, economics is not physics.
right.
Did you experiment?
Experiment in the real world where the Zeus will be the experiment.
No, I mean with this.
Yeah, we made some simulations. For example, simulations. Yes, we made simulations. But it's simulations. You can give such and such behavior and give simulation and tell you exactly how the economy will behave. By the way, it's a predictable economy. So if an investor put his money now, I can and I give you such scenario for adoption, such scenario for use, such scenario for investment, I can give you 100% information about the revenue that this investor will have in such and such months. So it's a fully predictable economy.
If it's successful.
Yeah, no, given a scenario, yeah. Such scenario, such revenue. Such scenario, such revenue. But in regular economy, you don't have predictability. Even given the scenario, you don't have predictability. So
Because you can never predict whether something will be successful or not.
yeah, that, of course. Now this upper margin should be the open market, the would-be open market rate. So what really you are doing is that the following thing. Imagine that with Bitcoin, if there is success, then the rate is growing. right? But we don't want to let it grow. So actually this dividend mechanism that I just described, not only it entitles more value to early contributors, but actually it's just make the inflation, the diluting, because you see, pulling out dividend is doing nothing, right? If I'm just having, let's say we have 100 ZOOS tokens in the world, and you have 1, and you have 2, and you have 3, and you have 4, and you accumulate to 100, okay? Now I take another 100, I print another 100 ZOOS tokens, and I give you 1, give you 2, give you 3, and so on. I haven't changed anything. I simply reduce the value of the token to half of its previous value, and I haven't changed nothing. It's just rescaling your meter, okay? So that's what this ZOOS token is doing. It's just rescaling. So the rate is, this project succeeds, the rate is coming up, no, rescale it down, we want it here. Coming up, rescale it down. But it's good for
Do you actually limit open market value?
No, because you get more and more tokens. You open the volume, and whenever the rate is coming up, you're increasing the number of tokens. So you're not, that's exactly the point. So you're not, so, but if that's so, is it better than Bitcoin or not? Because as described now, it's just in the same. I'm just rescaling the meter. Why is it different? This is the most important thing here. You see, in a free economy, the rate of token always happens between trades between people, okay? However, since here I'm putting this margin, I'm injecting more tokens to the, that's one way I'm injecting tokens to the economy. Now what I do, the point is what I do with the fund that is entering. So, and that's the most important. So now this fund is collected to a communal or community network fund. So this is the reserve fund, which behaves like a security network. A security net for the whole community. So now this is big difference from the Bitcoin or any different or other economy, because now you see the tokens can never crash. Given that, let's say that now we are stopping distributing tokens, the tokens can never crash beyond this. There is a security network for that token. That's the big importance of this economy. Okay, so it's a new economy. As you asked, we have an experiment. We should and we will. So this will be the experiment.
Interesting thought.
Yeah, I think that's enough in terms of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, so we said that, so there are 3 ways to distribute tokens. So either via purchase, or for contribution, or for, I would say, algorithmic contribution. Something that I can say a rule once for all, and simply follow that rule. For example, mining in Bitcoin goes under here. I just set the rules and that's it. That's the rule. Whenever you do such and such action, I give you such and such tokens. It's well defined. So that's simple. For example, in Azuz, what will be the algorithmic contribution or algorithmic reward actually is road miners. Whoever just driving with the application open such and such kilometer with such and such followers, a lot of input is coming in. We will still need to implement that. We have the algorithm, we still need to implement it in the, right now we just have a placeholder in your applications. We have developed a new, better algorithm, we just still need to implement it. So road miners are just like the algorithmic contributors or rewards. Now what about the purchase I just discussed before? And now I need to discuss about the general contribution. I talk here. I spend such and such hours, I give a talk, I generate such and such effect with this talk. It's not only about hours, it's how good your contribution, how valuable your contribution is. So now the community, and I will be brief on that because I think the last point is, the third point is more interesting, specific for this audience. So I'm just saying now the whole community need to evaluate that contribution, and this will turn into new tokens that are issued and be distributed to the actor. Okay? So, and also I will not tell you much about that, is because it's also work in progress, so it's not completed yet, but let me just give you the gist of it. It's very similar to a, it's not the end of the story, but it's similar to a weighted voting. So I will tell you about the weighted voting. I will tell you how Bitcoin is also a weighted voting machine. And I will tell you very briefly each of them. And I will tell you about how it's related to PageRank algorithm of Google. So one sentence on each of them. So weighted voting means that each person can say his opinion, and we are all weighted by our sort of reputation. Okay? So that's a weighted voting, but our weight. So that's a weighted voting, and then that requires to build a decentralized reputation system, right? So that's a challenge, and again, and I can tell you about how to do that, which is very similar in spirit to PageRank. Now, just one sentence about that. Bitcoin is a weighted voting. People are not aware of that. So what is the voting to vote about? So this is algorithmically defined, but we can decide about the protocols. How do we vote about the decision of the protocols in Bitcoin? We simply, each node can download that version, or that version, or that version. By downloading a version, you are voting. And what is your weight? Your hashing power. That's your weight of your vote. So Bitcoin is a weighted voting system. And PageRank algorithm just means that, for example, you rank what is the weight of each website, and it's basically an algorithm that counts the topology of the graph, how many links there are there between, and basically it implements the idea that you are important if you are linked to many important people. And it's a circular statement, but which can be resolved mathematically in a very simple manner. So this is just a gist. I will not enter. I should say that. And I think we should end and then just give you the most, I think, interesting, which is the centralized collaborative platform. And so in parallel to building all transportation ideas, now we're putting some energy into that direction, because we realize that if we want to be really decentralized, we have to have this tool. So now we want to build, we are building a platform. So let me just tell you what the platform does just by a drawing, okay? So I'm writing now, I'm clicking, I have a great idea. Okay, I have a great idea. I want to do decentralized insurance. Okay, I just had a great idea. We don't need any more insurance company, because if we gather million people and just doing risk sharing, I'm putting my premium, and then there are some algorithms that were saying that and that action, such and such evaluators give their feedback of how many insurance I need to get, and then the money is pulled out from the wallet. So it's completely decentralized. So I have this idea. So I'm writing, okay, I won't write it, just say. I'm writing, I am building an insurance company. And block, a new circle is jumping to the screen and saying insurance company. This is the content. I'm telling it it's a content. I am a member. So there is another thing is popping up, Matan. This is a node of type member or person, and this is node of type content. And this is a link of type contribution. Okay? And then I'm writing one page describing my vision. So this page is, whenever you click here, you open up a page which just tells the vision. Now, all this is relying on a social network. I have followers, and he has followers, and he has followers, and there is a mechanism for information to flow. Again, in a decentralized way, a decentralized social network. So, tomorrow morning, my followers are waking up, and they get in their feed that I'm opening a new decentralized application, and they see just the first node, and they say, "Whoa, what an exciting idea!" And the first one is a coder, and he's like a very experienced in system development. So he's saying, okay, I will write the first architecture for that. And he's writing, his name is Shai, and he's writing, this is the architecture. And there is a new blob here, architecture and Shai, and he's a contribution of that. And that's an inclusion relation, because this is part of that. And so on and so on and so on. People are starting to getting involved and play with this graph and making new contents. This graph can be having wallets with holders and investments and investors that invest to that wallet. You can have a nodes of professionship. I'm really skipping the whole thing. I'm just giving you the gist of it. It will know professionally this is design. And now all tasks, here there will be sub-projects, will be built layer by layer, and each of them will have tasks. And if this is a design task, it will be related to the professionship design node. And so now I'm a designer. I don't want to see the whole picture. I just got, so now here there is content which is called vision. Someone has just wrote the vision. Okay? So I'm a designer. I just click design, and I instantly see all the graph, the points where there is design work. So I'm entering there. I see, oh, I like this task very much. So I see who's the contributor of this design task. And I click on him. I see all his tasks. He contributed. I really like him, so I communicate with him. There is a communication channel built into that thing, so I message him, I want to work with you. And so on and so on. So this thing is basically incorporating in one channel, in one platform, a social network, plus a graph-based knowledge. And here the most important thing is dynamical. I can play with it. I can react to it. Plus, I haven't said that, but all this is plugged in to collaborative and task management. So task management platform. Task management platform, which already exists. It doesn't need to build from scratch. I can just make APIs integration here for any platform. He's working on Trello. He's working on Asana. He's working on any other platform. This connects to everything that is out there already. It's also connected to communication channels. These two people can integratively communicate via Skype or via Hangout or any way they want. So it's task management platform. And also inertly here, there are tokens. So inner crypto tokens. So now when I generate a new project, it's just like a Facebook group. I generate a new idea. There is a framework of rules. I don't need to code in Ethereum the rules. We already build like building blocks of rules. Now I can choose, okay, I want this economy, and I want this set of governance rules, and this set of rewarding mechanism. And I just start the project. And then if it's successful and people like it, it just grows. So the farthest vision is that when these three tools are ready, the technology for programmable blockchains and the protocols, the most generic protocol that you can come up with, good protocols, and this collaborative platform, the vision is that people, just as simply as you open today a Facebook group, people could build in 2 years from now, open a collaboration, which if successful and talks to people's heart, will grow to tens of thousands of people within weeks, and you'll get a new phase where just as today hundreds of groups grow to thousands of people, I would assume every week or every day, I don't know. So same thing here. You'll suddenly will have this, and this will be the phase transition. Hundreds or thousands of projects will be built and grow and establish large-scale collaboration, human large-scale collaborations, and this will enter completely new possibilities. So the pace of development or making action in the world will dramatically increase, and will basically reach a place where everyone are involved as much as they want in whatever sector. And that can penetrate any sector, any industry that you can imagine. And not only industries.
I have two questions for you. Sorry to interrupt.
That's almost it. So yeah, now.
Let's say that this line has the value of 1 token, because that was a test. And
Right.
this line has the value of 10
Right.
tokens. Why?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So that goes to number 2, which I skipped a little bit, but now I see this task and I really, really liked it. So I make a comment on it. And this comment can be just a like. And here I'm just giving you a partial answer because it's still under construction. It can be a word, hi, great, or something. I get a feedback, I give a feedback on that task. And now not only I'm giving a feedback on task, people can give feedback on feedbacks. Maybe I'm just nasty, or I'm saying it's bad. And he can give a feedback on a feedback. Why are you saying that? You just don't like this person. And now there is algorithms behind all this which sees the, you know what's a biofeedback, by the way? Biofeedback. Biofeed is a very simple idea. It's a machine that connects to your blood pressure, okay? And then and it interprets what it sees, and it tells you. Then someone is standing there, and you're speaking like a psychology, and you are nervous, and it's telling you are nervous. You see this dial? You are nervous, and this makes amazing feedback process because you see you're nervous, so you can say, oh, now I'm more relaxed. Now I'm more relaxed. Now I'm more relaxed, and you can actually bring down the nervousness. So this actually works very, very nicely. This is a community feedback. Someone is doing action. Instantly, there are a lot of feedbacks from the community which transform via algorithms to such and such tokens, or the reputation increased, the reputation decreased. So then,
But now it's not deterministic. So nobody can know what the result of his action was.
Perfect.
So
well, he sees, he feels what is, if it's good or bad, but yeah, it's not deterministic. Now, I build insurance company, maybe after 1 week it will become a loan company. Sorry, insurance decentralized organization. Next week it will become a loan market, decentralized loan market. But okay, I can always decide to hard fork it and do whatever I want with it.
My second question, what do you do when, let's say, this action over here doesn't match your vision? So it's going to do something completely
So they will
different, or it's off topic, or whatever
Right.
you want to call it.
Right, so just like GitHub, think about GitHub. If someone is pushing something which is not fitting them, I'm just rejecting that, but he can always hard fork and put somewhere else. But this is still, I must say, my answer is still partial. There are a lot of schemes we need to decide, and maybe the schemes are also options you can choose from. For example, you can choose when you build the project, you can choose it to be the master of everything. You always need to approve, and you can approve other people's to approve. You are choosing your rules of your group. And if your rules will be bad rules, then someone else will just copy paste it to another group, everything, and will just open a new group with the same content but new rules.
Or give you new insight in the vision what you already what first made.
Sorry,
Can also give you a new vision.
a new
A new vision of the first vision that is where that is started.
fishing?
Vision. Vision.
Vision. Yes.
Before,
Yes.
maybe it does not match
Yes,
with
yes,
the current vision.
Yes,
But when you look at it, maybe it
Exactly.
can give you new ideas.
exactly. So in that way, the community, this is really the replacement of the, I told you in the beginning, imagine that now we are billions of people and we have some funny electrode in our mind. We can make decisions together and create together. This is the electrode. We don't have the electrode in your mind.
The value can grow when you see,
Yeah.
well, it does not match the vision, but there are good stuff in it, so what can increase my vision. So can the point grow, or value, can the value grow of that fork?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, of how do you say it? Yeah.
You're asking if,
If a scheme is successful, how do
Yeah.
you monitor whether it's successful or not?
well, if you remember,
Does the value
the-
grow, or
Yeah.
remember the token eventually has a service tied to it. So eventually people, from day one, it will receive a market. And you can see if the market, if the market cap of this organization is growing or decreasing,
Yeah.
right? And how do you know when you have a good idea? How do you know it's a good idea? Firstly, you see that you find more people who think about in the same way. Secondly, when we come up with that, so then we thought, okay, but how we relate this information in a smooth way, which will not overflow the system, and then we come up with this multi-graph-based communication with different nodes, with different types, and different links with different types, and then you can click, just say, I am building that, and it's just a jump to the screen. And just a few weeks afterward, I met someone who just built one-to-one data architecture, the graph and the interactive graph-based content. And then we said, okay, but we need to have a distributed social network. But then I just met someone who's just now building this distributed social network.
I have one question.
And I need the technology for the crypto tokens that Ethereum is doing. So in fact, the nice thing is that now all these four bodies want to collaborate and make this happen together. So that's how you know that something is working properly, because the whole thing is already there. You just need to make them into one coherent picture.
If you're going to start the insurance company, I mean, there's a million ideas every day. And even in this
Exactly.
system, there will be a million ideas, but the only ideas that succeed are where the right competencies come together.
Exactly.
Picture builder, etc. How are you going to make that happen?
What? Which?
Well, the getting together of the
It
right
doesn't-
competencies.
Well, I doesn't.
One
Peop-
out of a million will be successful.
right, exactly.
Because they have the right.
But
Good luck.
no, but I'm claiming there won't be million. I'll tell you why. Because now I don't have to compete. I can also join. So I can either compete or I can join. And most of the time, if it's already grew up and you see there a good thing there, it's actually better to join. So there is a potential here. I can jump. There is a potential barrier, or I can join. And
At some point, you need that architect, the guy who's going to build the first architecture, for example.
right.
If you are not able to find him and connect him to the project,
You
then
will.
the project-
That will
Yeah.
become just like a WordPress template.
Exactly. Oh, thank you, thank you. I tell people about this and they say, oh, you're building WordPress for decentralized organization. I say, yes, that's what we're doing.
But if you miss just one of the competencies that you need to the whole growth of the idea,
But if you have fast propagation,
Yeah.
it reaches the right points, and then they have the incentive to join. If they don't, of course they don't, but they have the incentive. You reach there so easily. I already see it now without this platform. I see how fast, if enough people know what I'm looking for, how fast I get to that point. Really fast. You see, it's a dense graph, if we in mathematical terms. It's a dense graph. And yeah, well, without end.
It's still the same as in real life. You can have a great idea, but you can't sell it to other people. It will not work.
It will be there.
It will die.
Right.
No one wants to collaborate because you can tell them what a great idea it is. You have the best idea in the world, but if you can sell it or share it with people, it won't work.
By the way, but now this platform will be a galaxy of decentralized organization because you have now many projects. Now I can enter the platform, see that and that and that, and that projects. But now there are connections. They can collaborate together. They can exchange tokens. And also your reputation here is not disconnected from reputation here. So eventually, reputation is so important, you cannot misuse it. Without reputation, you are nothing.
In the beginning of the second part of this your presentation, you talked about that in the next 2 years we will see some kind of singularity. Now
Yes.
you say that we are having a galaxy of decentralized autonomous corporations. What is your end vision? What will happen with existing companies like hierarchies we now have everywhere?
Excellent question. So my point of view here, or Lazou's point of view here, is that, and we are actually pursuing that in any instance, is that the right way to bring a new phase. So two things here. Firstly, and this was the first part was said by Buckminster Fuller. You're not destroying, you're not breaking the old model. You're just building a better model until that becomes obsolete. That's the first part of it. That's what we're doing. We're not fighting with anyone. Second thing, which is I think is just one step further from that statement, is also build the bridges. Don't try to build the new model disregarding the old. Try to make it gradually from old to new. For example, in a decentralized organization, everyone can do whatever he wants, and there is no company structure. Sorry, I mean the structure within the people is not a company structure. However, just as an individual can participate, also a company can decide to participate in the game. A company is just like an individual. From the perspective of the community, that doesn't matter, right? So now we are actually in the process of founding several companies to do that, to be actors in the game. So we already funded one, we will soon fund another two. One of them will build that platform together, perhaps with Ethereum, with this, by the way, a distributed social network is called Scenario. This graph-based knowledge base is called Reezy. So we'll fund a company that together with them will build that thing. So now this company can also, thank you. This company can also fundraise capital from venture capitals, for example, when I presented that to venture capitals, they were really happy because they told me, look, you just solved us problem because we didn't know how to invest in this organization. So now they know. So this one of these players here is a company A. And this company A does a lot of contribution to the community. And it receives a lot of tokens from the community. And now you can, as an investor, can invest in that company as you are familiar with. We don't have to destroy the old structure. We need to merge the old world and the new world. Gradually, the new world will replace the old world. But this will just let nature does itself, by itself. So
Yes and no, because nowadays, for instance, if you talk about venture capital, they want to have influence as well. And in this case, you don't have influence.
So you do have influence. So already today, for example, there are open source projects and investors who invest in companies doing, so how do they get influence? The way is that acting right. If this is a company who is contributing a lot to development, it has a lot of power, indirect power, because of its contribution. The community has to take into account this reputation seriously, because this is a major contributor. So they get access and power not by enforcing anyone, but just doing good and people follow.
By creating value.
By creating value, exactly. And that's model already exists in open source programs. And they, by the way, those venture capitalists just know, and they are familiar with that. So that's how they get, and actually they're not naive. They actually say, oh, so that's how we will get full control of the organization. I'm just, I don't want to have anyone have full control. I don't think they will have full control, but indeed you can get a lot of influence via this mechanism. But you cannot get any influence. Let's say that you are doing 99% of development and 99% of reputation. What happens if tomorrow you're doing an action which disrupts the whole community? The community will just say, okay, someone is saying, I'm hard forking everything. And I'm generating new tokens. You can join whoever wants to join. And the day after, the company will just be left alone with all of its tokens and reputation in one project, and the whole project will move to another project. So it's a song and dance between control and yeah.
One more question, because I really like your end vision. I think it's very utopian. It's basically about the future of work.
Mm-hmm.
But you started talking about Lazuz solving a real-time ride-sharing problem, and you're ending with changing the world. Isn't that, well,
yeah.
Shouldn't you just focus on Lazuz?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you see, the perfect question. It depends. There are different answers to that question depending on who is wearing the hat. And you see, if I could have said, look, let's just do it like others. Just found a company. Let's just make a decentralized application in a centralized way. Perfect. I can do that. But that's not what I'm interested in. So, and then I say, okay, let's do a decentralized application with a decentralized organization. But what we find out is that without having the tools at hand, this decentralization doesn't function. Because you see, more than 60 people, without us even trying to reach to people, more than 60 people enter to the collaboration. And they dropped out simply because they didn't have the right platform at hand and right models. So we said, okay, if we want to grow up, we have to have some platforms. So we started now recently to use already existing platform, and gradually we integrate them. And after we integrate them, we start to build our own platform and gradually make the transition to that. But you already see the effect. Already just by starting with working with existing platform, already we grew up and we managed to work with 20 people and not just 5. So now, to be honest, I think this is more interesting than ride sharing. And much more big, and that's most people think about that, and also most venture capitals and investors are actually interested in that. But I'm telling them that you should also invest in ride sharing, because that will not succeed without having community testing it, feedbacking it, using it. So I'm saying it's a symbiotic situation.
Basically, your Lazuz application is some kind of test case for your worldwide vision.
Exactly. And now we are separate. We're not separating. We're building as one organization, but now we're founding one company that will promote this operation. Another company will promote ride-sharing application. Another company which will do something else. But there are symbiotic relations, and we're actually now building the architecture between those companies to make sure they have very much shared incentive to help each other. Okay. Shared revenue model, for example, and so on. Risk sharing. Yeah, I think I've tired you for, I don't know, 3 hours. How much was it?
No, you did your best.
Okay.
Do you have more
Okay.
questions, or are we ready for some informal conversations and beers?
And just one last thing, please.
Last hour?
This is my email at Gmail. And also, if you don't remember that, just Matan is my name. F is for field, Matan Field is my name, and just at lazuz.org. Oh, thank you. Lazuz is to move in Hebrew. Lazuz is to move in Hebrew, and zuz is the command move. But also zuz in Hebrew is the name of an ancient token. So it's a token of movement. It's a game of words. So Zuz is a token of movement. It was the ancient token in the Hebraic period, age. So that's Lazuz.
Thank you.
Great.